Hello and welcome back to a brand new season of HerSport's Six Nations show, brought to you in association with Opel, a proud sponsor of Irish Rugby. My name is Jessica Woodlock and I'm joined by former Irish international player Hannah Tyrrell to bring you all the latest Six Nations news, discussion, insight and a few laughs on the way as we build up to the weekend's action. Join us every Wednesday and be part of the conversation using the hashtag HerSport6Nations. Hannah, Ireland head into this tournament. They achieved 4th place last year, and since that we've seen the introduction of professional contracts. What do you think they'll be hoping for this year?
Firstly, I can't believe the Six Nations has come around again. I feel like it's been such a quick year, but so much has happened for Irish rugby within that year. And, you know, I think there's big expectations with the introduction of contracts to the squad this year that, you know, we'll see a much more, a much new and improved squad. You know, we have a lot of new faces in this year's squad, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how much of a difference it will have made to some of these players who now have had the opportunity since the contracts came in November, to be able to train, you know, daily and really, you know, improve their core skills and their execution of skills, and how much of an impact that can bring to their all-round game.
And we have Nicola Friday in there captaining again. She's now the most capped player on the team. Seems kind of hard to believe considering she only came in as captain last Six Nations. So what do you make of that, and what will she be looking to bring to the team this year?
Yeah, look, I think Nicola did a really good job last year leading from the front. You know, she had to learn a lot along the way. It's really hard to try and define your role and be a leader on the pitch and take on all these new added stresses as captain and still put in really big performances. And that can be a struggle at times, you know, but I think she'd be well used to that role by now. And she's leading a pretty young and inexperienced squad this year. And I do think it's going to be a tough battle for Ireland, but I'm just really hoping that, as I mentioned, their core skill has really improved, and that can help them in terms of their game, and that we bring a lot of physicality. And with Irish teams, you know that they're always going to be very passionate and give everything 100%, but they're going to need every inch of it this year, I think.
So moving on to that Ireland squad itself, what were your initial thoughts when you seen it?
Yeah, look, I suppose everybody knows after a World Cup year that squads are going to be drastically different, with a lot of players retiring post-World Cup. And while Ireland weren't in that World Cup, you know, they were no different to that. And we're looking at a new, fresh-faced squad with a lot of new players who, you know, would have known throughout the AIL and put their hand up, you know, through good performances with the AIL, Interpros and the combined provinces, that there were opportunities there. And this new squad has 8 new faces in it, you know, all looking to get some international experience. And along with that, there's been a wider squad panel of 12 extra players just to get them in, you know, show them what the setup is like and what's expected of them. And, you know, you never know, like they might end up being called into the main squad for whatever reason. But outside of that, it's just trying to improve, I suppose, the depth that we have in Irish rugby. And, you know, some of these new faces have massive potential to come in and actually get their first cap and make a difference and nail down a jersey for this competition.
You're mentioning there the new players, but we do have a few of those players that we would have seen do great things during the tournament last year. Niamh Jones is in there, Sam Monaghan, obviously Nicola Friday. How important will their experience be for the Six Nations?
Yeah, look, their seniority and experience will be absolutely crucial, you know, particularly as I mentioned earlier with Nicola Friday and her leadership. When you look at the big name players, Linda Dugang, Niamh Jones in particular, who had a fantastic season, the likes of Enya Breen, Sam Monaghan, those guys are going to be kind of the backbone of this team, trying to guide those younger players through and showing them the ropes a little bit. And hopefully, you know, we can get some good performances out of them, you know, and as I mentioned, just trying to improve that squad depth and get some good results.
So a few of those players that we are missing is the likes of Stacey Flood, Eve Higgins, Bevan Parsons, big names we would have talked about last year. Will their loss be felt?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt. You know, there are a number of those Sevens players who are legitimately world class, looking at the likes of Bevan Parsons, Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe. And, you know, our backline was made up of a lot of those players who played both last year. But this year, people mightn't realise it's a really, really important year for the Irish Sevens programme because it's a Olympic qualification year. And this team has 2 more stops on the World Series, starting with Hong Kong next weekend, where they're so close to qualifying for the Olympics for the first time. And, you know, while their presence will be massively felt during this Six Nations, to get an Irish women's team to the Olympics for Paris next year would be massive for Irish rugby in general, and will help support and grow the game across both codes, you know. And while their absence will be felt in the Six Nation, it's an opportunity for some young girls who've really performed over the last couple of months with their clubs to say, do you know what, I'm good enough to play for Ireland too, and give me an opportunity and I'll show you. And the likes of maybe Aoife Doyle, you know, Lauren Delaney, Aoife Dalton, who starred for Leinster in this year's Interpros, Maeve Deely, who's been injured recently but is a fantastic player and got capped in the summer series. Like, they all have an opportunity to put their hand up and say, this jersey, I want this jersey and I want to keep this jersey by putting in a good performance.
So moving on to the Wales squad then, obviously the first team will be coming up against. Hannah Jones is in there. She's been part of the setup for 8 years. As captain, what will she be looking to bring this year?
Yeah, look, Hannah Jones has been fantastic for Wales in the back line for the last couple of years, but, you know, she'll be looking for her team to put in some really big performances, and Wales are probably a year ahead of us in terms of they got their contract a couple of months before last year's Six Nations, and we really saw the benefit of that with them, and they came out firing in last year's Six Nations opener and got the win over us. And I think they'll have that in the back of their minds, that they're a team similar to Ireland that gives 100% and doesn't give up till the final whistle. And when we played Wales last year, Ireland were winning for the majority of the match until about the last 5 or 6 minutes or so, and Wales came barnstorming back, and they'll be kind of trying to hold on to those memories and trying to be like, this is ammunition that we have over them, and a kind of a mentality side of thing. But they bring a lot of intensity and physicality, you know, and they've some very, very dangerous players in their backline that if we allow them to get some space, they can do some damage.
And you mentioned their professional contracts that they did bring in last year. Since then, they've gone on to announce further players being made professional. So they now have 25 professional players they can call up. What difference will that make?
Yeah, well, look, again, each team is always looking not just at the 23 that they have in their squad, but also their wider squad and the depth that they have. And that will just bring and increase the level of depth that they have, so that if they end up getting hit with a couple of injuries or whatever at the wrong time, that they know that they have able players who are durable, who will be able to step up to the plate and have been in with the squad full time and know exactly what's going on and could slot right in seamlessly.
And then moving on to that England squad, obviously reigning champions, Grand Slam last year. We have a couple of key players, but England seem to be full of key players. But we've a couple that will be out. Zoe Harrison has an ACL injury. Emily Scarish is unavailable, also due to injury. And Abby Ward is unavailable as she's pregnant. A big person that the squad will be missing is Sarah Hunter, who obviously announced that this weekend will be her last match. What is her legacy, do you think, for this team?
Yeah, look, first of all, just going to the general England team, I suppose they have been kind of trailblazers for the women's game in terms of their professionalism and how they've gone about it. And I know the World Cup didn't go quite as they had planned, losing in the last minute to New Zealand, but they have just done some fantastic things and kind of paved the way, I suppose, that a lot of these other Six Nations teams will have hoped to follow. And for someone like Sarah Hunter, you know, she's been the captain of this team throughout. You know, she's set to become the most capped England player of all time, male or female, taken over from Rocky Clark, you know, which is an incredible feat, 140 caps. Like, when you think about someone like Nicola Friday, who has 30 caps or so, and she's our current most capped player, it's a phenomenal achievement. And, you know, her legacy will be forever remembered for the heights that she has helped bring this team to, and the respect that not only her own teammates, but, you know, players from other nations across the world will have for her is incredible. And she should be very proud of the career that she's had. And, you know, I've no doubt she'll get a fantastic send-off this weekend.
And just to bring listeners, I suppose, through that legacy, 2007, she made her first cap. 2013, she made a big impact at the Six Nations with 4 tries and also then becoming captain. 2014, won the World Cup. 2016, World Player of the Year. 2019, she became one of those first ever women's players to become professional. And then obviously 2023, announcing this weekend, would be her last match. She obviously was captain of the team, but recently Marley Packer has been named as co-captain, and we would obviously expect her then to go on and captain. She's a player you mentioned a lot last year. What do you think she'll bring now to the team?
Yeah, look, I think she's a fantastic player, one of the best number 8s in the world. As you mentioned, got World Player of the Year a couple of years ago, and she's won multiple Six Nations. And when you're the captain of one of the best teams in the world, you know, that is saying something. And to be captain for so long and to have won it all is an incredible legacy, you know. And I don't know if there's anyone in the men's game who even comes close to the amount of accomplishments that she's had. And, you know, and to cap it all off, to become the most capped English rugby player of all time this weekend, it'd be very, very special for her. And, you know, you think that England will massively miss her this weekend. And then you have someone like Marley Packer to step up and be captain, you know, the amount of leaders they have on that team. And it's just fantastic for them to be able to have the depth and the quality of leadership and players that they have to be able to replace someone who seems almost irreplaceable.
And Marley Packer was someone you mentioned a lot last year. She made the most defensive rucks than any other player, the most carries than any other player in the campaign. Do you think she'll kind of have her own mark to make in this campaign as a captain going forward?
Yeah, look, I think Marley Packer's a player you love to have on your team and you hate to play against. She's just an absolute menace. You know, she's a menace at the breakdown. She is a fantastic ball carrier. She manages to score tries, you know, and when an English team is playing well, it's usually because she's having a good game. And, you know, for her to step up and be captain this year, she's going to have a massive role for England in that back row. And they're usually a very physical and dominant pack, and with her at the back of that in that back row, along with the likes of Alex Matthews and Sadie Kabea, who I think is going to be a really, really big impactful player for England this year. They look hard to beat and hard to look past.
And then moving on to that Scotland squad, they finished 6th last year. They'll be captained by Rachel Malcolm this year. What do you think they'll be looking to achieve? Obviously, an improvement on that, you would imagine.
Yeah, look, obviously very disappointed for Scotland last year, not where they would have liked to have been, you know, but they also had another focus last year that was going to the World Cup for the first time ever for them. And I think they'll be buoyed from just coming off the back of that and the experience they've had in the World Cup. And, you know, they'll be coming to target certain games within this campaign to be able to, you know, get the win. And I'm sure, obviously, the big games against England and France, while personally I don't think that they'll get the victory in it, they'll be looking to put in some solid performances. And there's some fantastic players in the likes of Helen Nelson, you know, and unfortunately for them, one of their big players, Jade Conkle, is out for the Six Nations. But they've no doubt some real quality in their squad, and they'd be looking to just put in cohesive performances that they probably weren't very consistent with last year.
And then that France squad, they're big contenders against England. They finished second behind them for the past 3 Six Nations. Is the goal for them to beat England? Is that what they'll be looking to do?
Yeah, look, I think every team's goal when you come into the Six Nations is to win it, regardless of how achievable that may be or not. But all these players are at the top of their game and they come in with these winning mentalities, and regardless who they want to or who they're up against, they want to win. But yeah, France definitely will have a bee in their bonnet against England, who've thwarted them a couple of times, you know. And to be honest, some of the games in the past couple of years between the two have been absolutely fantastic. And maybe France might target that England have a couple of losses this year due to retirements and injuries, that this might be the year they can finally get one over on them. So I'm sure it'll be a tasty battle, and I can't wait to see, because it'll definitely, for me, be a decider for this year's Six Nations.
You are watching the HerSport Six Nations show, brought to you in association with Opel, a proud sponsor of Irish Rugby. So an interesting thing, I thought anyway, in that France squad, Gail Ermey will not continue as captain, despite actually remaining in that team. So Audrey Furlani is coming in, taking over the reins. That must be an interesting dynamic, surely. What do you make of it?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing to come out of that, obviously, Audrey Forlani, one of the most experienced players in that French squad, been around for a very long time, had a fantastic Six Nations last year in partnership in the second row with Medusa Mafal, but she actually wasn't even selected in the France squad for the World Cup last year. She was left out entirely, and no real explanation given, and then not only was brought back into the fold for this year's Six Nations, but has now been named captain. Very French, I suppose you can say. But, you know, there's a number of reasons why potentially the captaincy may switch hands. You know, Ermey's a fantastic player, probably wasn't at her best last year. And so maybe, you know, they thought that the captaincy was a little bit too much pressure on her shoulders, and you know, they wanted to give her the freedom of being able to play again without having all that other pressure of captaincy on top of her. And it doesn't always suit players well. You know, they might be fantastic leaders, but actually when they get that pressure, and I suppose all that intense scrutiny from being captain, it doesn't actually work in their favour. And maybe, like, we don't know behind the scenes, she may have asked, could she not be captain this year? They may have had a conversation and figured out what was best. But, you know, I don't think it'll affect her performances on the pitch too much. You know, if anything, it will give her a little bit more freedom to go off and play her game and be the menace that she is.
And for Lani to come in, as you mentioned, they're not being included in the World Cup squad. Bit of a comeback, you could say, for her. What do you think happened there behind the scenes?
Yeah, look, I've no idea, to be honest, but she's a fantastic player, and I was so shocked myself when I saw it. You know, and France, who were contenders for the World Cup, wanted to obviously have their best players, you know, involved, and they didn't have her. And I'm wondering, was there a little bit of hindsight? We should have brought her. And, you know, in terms of Forlani, look, it's fantastic for her. It shows great resilience and mental strength to be able to take that hit and, you know, and come back into the squad. And I'm sure she has a point to prove. And, you know, being named captain means we're going to see her an awful lot. And she'll want to lead this French squad to victory, you know, and particularly be eyeing up England to try and get one up on them.
So then that Italy squad, last but not least, I suppose, Elisa Giordano set to captain the side. They finished 5th last year. What will they be hoping for this year?
Yeah, look, I suppose Italy be very similar to Scotland. Probably not too happy with some of the results they had last year. And I think, again, very similar to Scotland is that they have a lot of issues around their consistency, where over 80 minutes, they could have 20 minutes where they play some fantastic rugby and then 20 minutes where they play some awful rugby. And, you know, they'll be focusing on just putting in really good performances for the entirety of the game, you know, trying to put their best foot forward. And they have a very big and physical pack, you know, but their set piece tends to let them down a little bit. And, you know, they have some fantastic players like some Manuela Furlan, who's a devastating fullback and can do really well. But, you know, they just, for me, are a little bit off the pace at the minute. But again, like, you just never know what's going to happen in rugby at the Six Nations. And Italy are very like that team that you never know which Italy you're going to get. And I'd be quite wary of them when Ireland go over to play them, particularly with Italy being at home. You know, that they could have a few tricks up their sleeves, but I don't think they'll be a worry for England or France and those competing for the title.
So this year we are running a Six Nations Fantasy Rugby League, and we want you to get involved. There are weekly prizes to be won, and it's a great way to get invested into the tournament. The best part is, it's all free. Just use the link in the bio to set up your team. Myself and Hannah will be getting involved, and every week we'll be giving you our top 5 players that you should be including in your team. So Hannah, it's the start of the tournament. People won't be surprised to hear that you're very competitive with it, as we know last year. You done quite well last year as well. So for this weekend, who should people have in that team?
I'm a little bit wary of telling people they go, I'm going to have my team or who they should have, because I don't want them to win. Yes, I'm very competitive. I loved, you know, getting involved with it last year. I think it's fantastic to be able to have it. It's been around for the men's for a very long time. So for people to be able to tune in, it really helps grow the women's game. I'm not going to give away too much, but look, I think people would be silly not to have someone of the caliber of Gabrielle Vernier from France in their centre partnership. You know, I think she's been a fantastic addition. No surprise that I'll probably put Sam Monaghan in my second row. You know, I don't want to give away too much here. Manuela Furlan will probably be in there from an Italian point of view for me.
Would any of our Irish backs get a place in there? Last year you would have had Eve Higgins in a lot, Bevan Parsons as well.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to pick my team until the team is announced tomorrow. But yeah, someone like Aoife Doyle could definitely do damage to the weekend. I'll see if I can afford her. And you know, there's a certain amount of players you can have. Again, Dana O'Brien there too, but I really like the look of Helena Rowland. She'll probably play 10 for England as well. And for the week that's in it, I'll probably throw Sarah Hunter at 8, because I've no doubt she'll be on the back of a couple of rolling mauls or picks off scrums to try and get her a fairy tale ending. So yeah, hopefully I do well this week, but I'm not giving away all my secrets every week.
So people will have to tune in again next week then to see how Hannah gets on and to get more tips, or lack of tips, as it seems to be. So then the first big match of the weekend, Wales versus Ireland. We were both actually in the RDS last year watching the game. As you mentioned earlier, Ireland were winning and then Wales came away with the win. Obviously not the result we hoped for last year. Last year, Wales would have been one of those teams we tried to box off, I suppose, in the beginning. What do you think that match will look like this weekend?
Yeah, look, I think it'll be another really tightly contested affair, and this game for Ireland and this new look squad can be a real breaking point for this squad. A really nice win, whether it's tight or whether it's quite comfortable, can have a dramatic effect on the rest of this tournament for this team, and it'd be really nice to start off with a win. I do think we could sneak a win, but I think it'll be very, very tight, and I'll be interested to see what the team is when the squad comes out. But I'm going to say that Ireland might sneak this a little bit, a couple of points in it though.
And if you had to put a score line on it, what would you say?
Probably something like 25-23.
So another tight match.
A really tight one, yeah.
A quick reminder, this weekend, HerSport will be hosting a watch party for the opening game against Wales at Ashton's pub in Clonskee. Aoibhinn Riley and Tanya Rosser will be speaking ahead of the match, and everyone is welcome. Use the link in the bio to register your place and watch the match together with fellow supporters. And elsewhere in the Six Nations, we then have England coming up against Scotland. They suffered a big defeat last year. I think it was 57-5 or something like that. What will Scotland be looking to bring against a team that they know is I suppose, the reigning champions in this tournament?
Yeah, much like last year where Scotland actually had a really fast start and got the first score of the game, they'll be looking for a really, really good start and to try, I suppose, catch England off guard. With teams in the first game of the tournament, you can be a little bit slow to start and kind of not a little bit rough and ready and not as finely tuned. So Scotland will be looking to get a really hot start against this English side, punish them early, but we know that this English side has massive quality and huge depth and impact off the bench, and I think this will be a really routine and easy win for England. And again, particularly with that occasion for Sarah Hunter, they'll want to really, really do her justice.
And would you imagine it will be a similar scoreline to last year, or what mark would you put on it?
I really hope not, because I want every single game to be really competitive, and I don't want it to be as one-sided, but I do think there could be 30 points in it for England.
And then the last game we have Italy and France. We talked about it earlier. France are big contenders in this tournament. What do you think that match will look like?
I think France will be looking to put out some really early markers and show that this squad, despite the couple of retirements and injuries that they have, that they're out to do damage this year and really lay down that marker of first game in, we've put this points on the board, come and catch us, England. And depending on the Italy team you get, are they up for it? Can they hold up that defensive pressure and physicality that France are going to give? I'm not sure. Again, I think this could be a fairly routine and easy win for France. Could easily put 40 points on the board.
So in terms of the games to watch this weekend, most competitive, you think Wales and Ireland?
Definitely Wales and Ireland.
And then obviously a big one for the name that's in it, the England match, of course, with Sarah Hunter's, I suppose, final outing for them.
Yeah, look, I'd be encouraging everybody to watch every single match, but if you only had time for one, the Ireland-Wales one will definitely be the most competitive. But you might see some fantastic quality and skill in the other two games, and they're surely not to be missed.
Now, before we head into the final part of the show, we have a brand new segment in called Break It Down. We are giving Hannah 60 seconds to explain rugby terminology. So this week, we're going to be talking about rucks. So I have the timer here, Hannah.
Okay.
So Hannah, starting from now, we'd like you to break it down.
Okay, so a ruck is formed when a player gets tackled and then an attacking player comes in to try and seal off the ball. So a ruck forms when a defensive player and an attacking player actually meet to try and steal or protect the ball. Once that's set, the defensive team, an offside line has been formed, so the defensive team have to stay with their back foot behind the back foot of their own defensive player and cannot come forward until the 9 has picked up the ball. If you're trying to steal the ball, you must come in through the gate, which is right in front of the ball. So you can't come in from the side, and that's the same for an attacking player as well. Anyone who is sealing off or trying to steal the ball must stay on their feet, so you cannot be off feet. What else? The ball is up for discussions. You cannot have hands in the ruck if the attacking player actually gets there first. But if you were the first defensive player to arrive, you can take the ball and you're first player and you can play on.
And that's 60 seconds there. So that was your I hope for everyone listening there, they now fully understand rucks. They'll have no issues with it. And if they do, they can speak to Hannah.
I'm sorry if I got anything wrong.
Looking ahead for this campaign, last year we would have said what we wanted Ireland to achieve. We didn't quite get there, I think, last year. What would you hope this team brings back this year? What position and what sort of rugby would you like to see us play?
Look, I think it's fairly obvious that France and England are the two top teams in this tournament, and, you know, everyone else in this tournament will be looking to finish in that third place. Fantastic if we can, you know, get a win over the likes of England and France, which are our two home games, but I think that's a very big ask. So for Ireland, I think a very successful campaign is to get 3 wins out of 3 in their away games and put in some really, really good performances that we can be proud of against France and England at home. I think it'll be very tricky. You know, I think the gap between England and France is big enough now. We want to just start closing that little by little. But three away wins this year to finish third would be a really nice result in this first year of this new World Cup cycle.
And you obviously yourself have played in Six Nations tournaments. What are those players feeling heading into this weekend?
There's a mix, I suppose, of nerves, of excitement. You know, we play rugby because we love it and it's such an enjoyable game. And yes, it's no different at international level. There's probably just a little bit more pressure and scrutiny on you. But everybody's just looking forward to getting going, hoping the weather's really nice, that we get a good crowd for the kind of atmosphere side of things. And depending on how long you've been in the squad, I suppose there would be that set of nerves or whatever else. But look, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure the players can't wait to just show all the hard work they've been doing in training. And I really hope that it results in a good performance and a good result.
And I suppose for the weekend that's in it as well, we've seen the men's get the Grand Slam, and it's 10 years since Ireland's women's team got a Grand Slam. Just what was the legacy of that, do you think?
Yeah, look, it's mad to think that it's been 10 years, you know. For me, that was probably some of my earliest memories of women's rugby playing in Ireland, you know, and I know a couple of the girls that have been playing on that squad and ended up playing a lot with them because I got my debut a year later. But I don't think we realised the significance of winning a Grand Slam, and to be able to do that back in 2013 with the incredible calibre of players we have, they set a precedent there. You know, we've only won the Six Nations once since then in 2015. And while we're a little bit off, you know, that stage now, I'd love to get us back to that because we have some fantastic players out there. You know, it's just about setting them on a pathway to success and hopefully getting back there one day. But you know, we'd be able to look back at those memories of 2013 and it's such a phenomenal achievement. You know, we should be recognising and celebrating those women that were involved in that squad and hoping that we can replicate that sometime in the not too distant future.
And you mentioned there, obviously, you came in a year after we've had significant changes in the team, in the whole Irish women's setup, you know, more grassroots rugby, more resources put in, new coaching teams, and obviously the big thing, contracts. What do you think of the changes that have occurred in that 10 years and I suppose more obviously in the last year?
Yeah, look, obviously massive changes have happened right across the world with women's rugby, and the standard of women's rugby has only risen and will continue to rise, and the development that we've seen is fantastic. But for Ireland, and to look at it that way, to think, if you were to ask that 2013 team, did you think we'd ever go professional and have contracts? A lot of them would probably say no, you know, so to see us in a position where we do have players with contracts, I'm sure they wish they were maybe a couple of years younger so that they could actually have a similar opportunity. And I think the current squad realise that they are in a position that nobody has ever had in this country before, and that they want to be able to use this opportunity to push on and actually get something out of it. And you know, I really hope they do that because this could be the start of a new legacy for Irish rugby.
And leaving it there then on that high note, a reminder to watch the Wales versus Ireland game, the England versus Scotland game, and of course the Italy and France game. A reminder also that you can join us at the watch party this Saturday at Ashton's pub in Clonskeagh to support the Irish team. See you all next week. That's all from us today. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next week for a recap and preview of the match ahead.